So, hi
Oh,
everybody.
can't blame you.
You can't.
Hi,
Thank you. Dave's in Paris, right,
I
Dave?
am. I am in Paris, as you can tell
As
by
you,
the blue sky out of my hotel room window. Well,
yeah,
actually, I'm not in my hotel room. I'm in like a common area
it's
of
quiet.
a incredibly corporate Marriott hotel in Paris, in the outskirts of Paris.
Was that
Um,
a Marriott diss
no,
live?
I mean Marriott's where. So I'm here, Jana, for an AWS conference. As you know, we are preferred partners with Amazon Web Services and Amazon Managed Blockchain. And they invited me to come here today to talk about our AI projects, talk about our blockchain projects with some other partners. Looks like they've actually, as an enticement, they gave us a little grant. We got a little grant money, which was nice.
Hey,
And then they offered us some more grant money while we were here. They really liked the project. They were like, "This is a really great use case, and we'd like to work with you guys." So we now have AWS firmly in our corner, which is, it's like
yes,
having Big Brother in your corner, but it's also very nice. They've got a lot of resources and a lot of compute that we're going to need. So
I love
anyways, it was a successful trip, but I was just telling Maureen that like I got here. I flew in from Barcelona last night. I arrived at midnight. Went to bed. Got up this morning. Went directly to the conference. I've been there. I've been there all day in the conference room and then in breakout meetings until just now when I got on with you. I haven't been outside. I haven't had a proper Paris meal, and I unfortunately was unable to secure a glass of wine.
Ah, well, you probably wouldn't. It wouldn't have been easy to find one of the right glasses of wine for today's topic, anyway. So, I don't have one
What
either. I'm
what is today's topic, Jana? I'm sorry, I've been so busy this week that I didn't have a chance to prepare. I didn't have a chance to look into like what kind of what we were going to be talking about today. If I had a glass of water, what I would do right now is I'd be drinking that water so that when you told me what we were doing today,
yeah.
I could do a proper spit take.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Dave, for the lovely build up. So I don't know if anyone realized this before. A lot of people think I'm American because Dave and I sound the same. I think we sound the same, except when I say anything with the word R in it, because then I come out real pirate. I am Canadian,
Or a
and
boot.
or or
We're
house.
gonna we're gonna talk about wine today.
Oh God. Oh God. It will come out. If my mom was on this live, and I know she's watching, because she never misses a Wine Wednesday. Good woman. Thanks, Mom. Um, I if my mom was on here, it takes me like 30 seconds to hear her talk, and then my accent totally gets back to like Nova Scotia accent. So today's topic is Canadian wine.
I'm sorry,
Very
what?
where did you had nothing to spit out, so it
I had
wasn't.
nothing to spit out, so I couldn't do a proper spit take. I'm sorry. When you say Canadian wine, what do you mean? Like champagne that's been imported into Canada and it's been I know. It's wine that where you go to Niagara Falls
Oh my God.
and you take a nice bottle of Krug and you put it in the river and you chill it in the river at Niagara
Ugh.
Falls. That's about as close as you can get to Canadian wine. Is that right?
It's so painful to talk to you about this today. And I knew it was going to be painful. And I think it's very disrespectful considering that yesterday was Canada Day. So,
Canada Day. Canada Day. 51st State Day is what we call it.
oh God, those up. Oh God. So Dave's American. Dave's actually from Michigan, and I'm
It's
from Nova
true.
Scotia. And it's funny because we were on a road trip in France once when we were filming for Rare, the movie, and I think I don't know at what point I think I was kind of like zoned out. We'd been driving for a while, and Barrett's Privateers was on. Anyone who doesn't know Barrett's Privateers, like look it up. It's an awesome song, and
Uh,
I know every word. We sang it at my wedding, and I was like unaware that anyone else outside of Nova Scotia or Newfoundland like listened to that. And Dave, we're driving along in France, and I start hearing Dave playing Barrett's Privateers, and I'm thinking like it's so natural for me that I wasn't really realizing that Dave's playlist was playing it. And then I was like, what the hell is happening? So why do you know that song again?
It's not a happy song. I don't know why you sang it at your wedding. Not a happy song at all.
We always sing
I
it when
I
we drink.
encourage anybody to look it up on Spotify. You can look up the lyrics. It's sung in a like a usually in a like pretty rough British accent where you can barely understand most of it, and it's using a lot of slang. But it's a really really great. It's a sea shanty.
It
It's
is
a
a
sea shanty.
because
Um,
I, unlike you, am from an Atlantic province where it makes sense for me
yeah,
to know beer. Why do you know it?
it's a sea shanty from 1778.
Good God.
Yeah, that's when
Do
the
you
song was
remember
written.
this, or are you like quietly typing in the background?
I'm full of useless facts,
Ah,
except for apparently if you watched last week the 5 varietals from that are allowed in Champagne. But
it was actually, and I wasn't actually as wrong as I thought I was about that, by the way. For anyone who was watching last week and was like, Jesus, Jana, get your shit together. It was the 5 white grape varieties. I knew there was like 4 weird ones, but
anyway, everyone should download, or should go to Spotify, listen to Barrett's Privateers, and we'll have a quiz next week and maybe give away a bottle of champagne to anyone who can get the answer right.
are you are you actually remembering 1776 because it's in the lyrics, or was there?
1778,
Oh, the year was 17. No,
78.
Fact check.
Okay.
All right.
Well, maybe it depends on who sang it.
How I wish I were in Sherbrooke now. Huh. Okay. Anyway,
Anyway, so I live
it's
near
really good.
Canada, and anytime my memory, Jana, and I was only a kid. I left when I was 18, but my memory is anytime anyone in my family wanted to drink a great glass of wine, we all headed across the border, and went to Windsor to get a nice bottle of Canadian wine. So that's my experience with Canadian wine.
That's okay, Dave. Thanks. What about, and why do you know Barrett's Privateers was actually the question before you went on a
Oh,
tangent and
be-
slandered our country's wine?
because actually, no kidding. So my dad, when my dad grew up, he lived in Detroit, and his parents had a. This was back before 9/11, when it was real. Like, you used to be able to drive across the border, and like you would just wave at the border guards, and
Vegan.
no problem either way. And so they had. He lived in Detroit, but they had a summer cottage in Sarnia, maybe, I don't know, a little town just across the river. So they spent all of their summers in Canada,
Okay.
and so my dad grew up. We grew up like with the rabbit ears on top of the television, like watching snowy CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting CBN? No,
Yes.
CBC, Canadian
CBC.
Broadcasting Channel.
Mhm.
And we'd watch hockey games and watch the news. Like, my dad didn't really like the corporate news in the United States. This was even back in the 70s and 80s. So we would watch the Canadian news channels and watch hockey. And he would play, the old Canadian music. So that's
I
how I
think
knew
your
Bears
dad,
Privateers.
I think your dad would be nicer to me than you are to me.
Well, he wishes he was Canadian,
I love that about your
but
dad.
but that's because he's a beer drinker.
I love that about your dad. I'm also a beer drinker.
Yeah,
I'm Canadian, so I'm an everything drinker. We drink it all.
right.
If it's got
Sure.
alcohol in it, we drink it. It's cold where I'm from. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like we're really off track, and I had
Well,
so
let me
many
let,
things.
let me bring it back around and
Okay.
say,
Happy
I
Canada Day.
honestly,
Thank you.
no kidding, didn't know that they made wine in Canada for a very, very long time.
Well, that's fair.
Um,
That's
but
fair.
in 2008, I think it was, the most expensive wine in the world was an ice wine from Niagara.
What?
And that, yeah, look it up. I think it was 2008, maybe 2007. And then for a couple years in a row, the most expensive wine in the world was an ice wine from Niagara. And so that's why I learned about it, because I read that article and I was like, wait, what, wine in Canada?
Hmm.
And so I learned a little bit about Canadian wine, and I've actually tried a bunch of Canadian wine, a bunch of iced wine. I haven't tried any other. I assume that somewhere in Canada you must make some other still wine,
Dry
but
wines.
dry wines. But but my memory, the only memory that I have of Canadian wine is drinking very, very expensive, very, very tasty ice wine from Niagara.
Huh. Well,
So I've
Canada,
only had the good stuff, which I know is off brand for me, but I've only had the good stuff in Canada.
I actually aged from ice wine barrels. I don't have a Canadian wine here, but I have a Canadian whiskey that was aged in ice wine barrels here. Maybe I'll
Okay,
have a sip of that later. But anyway,
fair.
I don't
So
have
can
Canadian.
so Jana,
Oh my God.
tell
Are
us
you ever
about
going to
the.
let me say anything, or is
I,
this
I'm
Dave's?
what I'm doing is I'm going to set you up, and I'm going to
Oh,
say, Jana, tell us about the history
mhm.
of wine in Canada.
Great. Well, first of all, the reason why you probably never heard anything about Canadian wine or for a long time is because
It
Canada has
sucks.
only
Oh,
been
sorry.
because shut up. So we've been a country since I looked this up yesterday because I was like, ugh, I was like, how old is Canada today? Like, I feel like such a bad Canadian. It's 158 years old, which is not very old, but you know, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're climbing. But wine has actually only really been produced, like dry wines, from grapes that we would know of, like Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Gewürztraminer. Those grapes were only really planted starting in really like 1990. So I was born in 1990. 35 years of the 158 years that Canada has been a country have we been like making wine, which means technically, like if you think about a vine, and I don't know if there's actually, I don't think that there's an official age for a vine to be before it's considered old vine. I always say 40 years, but
Yeah,
35 years
usually.
old, yeah, but 35 years old is like that's the first vines that were planted that are vitis vinifera and not hybrid grapes, which are hybrid are,
Young
basically
and fresh faced, just like you.
hybrids.
No, I'm saying all those vines
Oh,
every vine in Canada is young and fresh faced,
there's
just like you.
it's all my vintage
Maybe they planted those vineyards
in
like the
honor of
year
me.
you were born because they knew. They must
I
have
know.
known something.
I think so.
Someone had an idea.
Someone got the memo. I mean,
Yeah.
I was born in June, so that doesn't really make sense. It wasn't planting season. It's okay, Dave. I like where you're going with that. So if you think about it, there's only been really like 35 years for the vines to mature, but on the other hand, there's also only been like 35 years for people to gain experience in Canadian wineries. So it's growing a lot. And I think it's a very interesting country. It is also a very difficult country because you have provincial monopolies and just a lot of friction when it comes to just as a Canadian buying wine. So yeah.
Where is wine planted? Like where are the big
So
vineyards?
so most people would know like British Columbia wines or wines from Ontario.
If you had a giant map, where is British Columbia?
Well, I can show you. I actually got out a map for today because, well, British Columbia is on the west coast, guys.
Yeah.
I'm from Nova Scotia. I'm from the east coast, so you got like Vancouver on the west, Nova Scotia on the far east. Okay, so opposite coasts. Hang on, I marked the page for the
And
wine
British
map
Columbia
on
is
there.
kind of above Idaho, right?
Hold on. Here we go, guys. So look, there's even vines planted on Vancouver Island.
Wow. So yeah, that is. I was actually correct. That's right above Idaho.
Is
Well,
it right above
I guess
Idaho?
above Washington, the like
Well, right
super
above Washington, yes.
Eastern Washington State and Idaho.
So Walla Walla, like Walla Walla,
Red
Washington.
Mountain.
Yeah,
Red
but
Mountain is like right there,
yeah,
like
so
just across the border.
exactly. So actually, like Okanagan Valley, which is one of the most well-known Canadian wine areas or wine regions, that's basically the northern tip of the northern piece of the desert that runs all the way down to Mexico. So people don't think that it could be hot at any point in Canada, but it actually is like 40 degrees, 42 degrees Celsius in the summer in the Okanagan Valley, and that's right. Basically, the most southern part of that is right on the border kind of to Walla Walla as a
That's
comparison.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and they make great wine in Walla Walla and Red Mountain. Like,
Yes.
in my opinion, some of the best Syrahs in the world are from Red Mountain. So right
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
So, you guys should be able to get your shit together in Canada at some point.
So annoying. So disrespectful and annoying, actually. I'm gonna just let's make sure that
I
everyone is on is not on Team Dave on this one. It's ugh. Okay. I know all the Americans that were like 51st state. That's enough out of you guys. Um,
but wait.
mm,
So that's all on the West Coast, but on the East
mhm.
Coast, talk to me about what's happening in Niagara. Like honestly,
So
no kidding. There was like there's a winery and you'd have to look this up, but in 2000, 2007, 2008, there
yeah,
was a winery out of Niagara that was making ice wine that was selling for like $1,800 a bottle.
really?
Yeah,
Hmm. In which year? Sorry.
2007, 2008.
Oh, I was in high
That
school, Dave. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just had to. Okay, that's okay. All right, that was a low blow.
all right, fair,
But okay,
fair. That's
I'll
fine.
check. I'll look it up. I should know that. I do feel like I should know that. So I will look it up. I'll do my homework. Um, okay, so Ontario. I lived in Toronto for 4 years. So I spent a little bit of time. Niagara on the Lake, for example, is an absolutely stunning wine growing area. Um, if anyone has actually been to Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake, different. Niagara Falls, very Vegas-like touristy. The actual natural part of Niagara Falls is absolutely gorgeous, very impressive. Um, Also, did you know that Niagara Falls actually erodes? It's like they lose a foot, or it loses a foot every year
Yeah,
from erosion.
yeah. Because it's a lot of water
Yeah. Anyway, it's like
and
60
guys in barrels.
and guys on barrels. That's wild.
Like, and that. So now it all makes sense. Like, how would they have barrels if there wasn't wine? Oh, I guess whiskey. They went over in whiskey
Yeah,
barrels,
I was
didn't
gonna
they?
say because that was more. I think that was before, like 1990. Wasn't that when that
Yeah.
was like? Wait, I don't know exactly when that was, but I
Well,
can't.
there's a saying, right? Like you go over the falls in a barrel.
Yeah,
Like
people
that's
like
a.
I've I was like 10 years old when I went and they told me that story on a tour, and I was like,
I don't think it really happened.
it did happen.
Really?
I think it
Okay.
did.
But it
Yeah.
was a whiskey barrel, not a wine barrel. So we're off topic again.
Again.
Again, Jana, we're off topic.
Okay. Anyways, but yeah, so Niagara is another one of the, or Ontario in general is another one of the big wine growing areas. And then there's also Nova Scotia.
But wait, while we're still in Ontario,
Yeah.
can you talk to us about ice wine? Because maybe some people don't know what ice wine is.
Yeah, I've harvested ice wine. It's a brutal task, but it's great. So ice wine is when you have grapes that you leave on the vine. It's a risky business because a grower has to decide if they want to harvest the grapes and safely make wine at the regular harvesting time, or if they want to see if it's going to get cold early enough for the grapes to freeze. You've got to get about negative 10 degrees Celsius, depending on how close the winery is. I think I know the law in Germany is negative 7 degrees Celsius that you have to have at the time of pressing the grapes. So usually you've got to have at least minus 10 temperature when you harvest the grapes so that by the time they get to the winery, they're not warmer. And then basically what happens is you've got this frozen concentrated, so you press the grapes and you've got this frozen concentrated syrup that separates from the water, from the ice. So you end up getting this really, really, really concentrated grape sugar. Like it's like
Yeah.
gold. It's so little that comes out of every bunch when you press it because the water is all separated then off. So you get literally all the good stuff, all the flavor. And it's just this absolutely incredible wine that you can produce from it. It's pretty sweet.
Yep.
And it takes a long time to ferment because it's very high in sugar. But yeah,
Is
it's
it fortified, Jana? Do they add?
no,
Do they? No, it's not fortified at all.
this wine
So
is
it's
not fortified.
how is it different from like Sauterne or like a regular sweet wine or a regular like a um, yeah. How's it different from Sauterne?
Well, I mean, then we're talking about Bordeaux. So Sauternes is something that is produced from botrytis or botrytized grapes,
Hmm.
which basically means Sauternes is something that comes from Bordeaux, very famous if you have ever heard of Yquem. So basically, you have an estuary in Bordeaux, so you've got a lot of sort of rivers, and when you plant Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, particularly on the lower slopes where the rivers create this mist and this fog off of the rivers in the morning, when the grapes hang long enough in the growing season, and this mist keeps coming in the mornings and covering the grapes, then it forms this this noble rot. It's called botrytis, and that attacks the skin of the grapes, dehydrates the grape from the outside in, and it gives the wines this really specific. This is the difference. Sauternes has this like honeyed, kind of like candied orange peel, incredible, very, very specific flavor
Mhm.
profile. Also very sweet, but then ice wine is more clear and precise in its profile. So
Oh,
usually
okay.
you don't want to
So
make
there's no botrytis with iced wine.
you try not. I mean, you try not to. There might be some, but usually it's a
Interesting.
much cleaner flavor profile. So that's
Oh, okay.
actually the beauty. That's actually kind of the beauty of ice wine. And the difference between, in my opinion, the two most famous ice wines are German and Canadian. And there is actually a very big distinct difference, because let's say you're talking about a 100% Riesling ice wine. Canada often uses Vidal, but they make ice wine out of Pinot Noir and Riesling and all kinds of different white grape varieties and black grape varieties. But if you think about like a classic German Riesling ice wine, the acidity is so cleansing on the palate that even though it's like the sweetest wine that you can get, like one of the very sweetest wines that you can get that's not fortified, and I mean it wouldn't have to be fortified, but it's just like your palate is instantly refreshed. It's incredible. It's like, oh, it is liquid gold. If you haven't had a good ice wine, you have to try
It's
it
really something that you gotta
side by
kind of put
side.
on your thing. Now, what do you pair it with when you drink ice wine? Like, I mean, I I know how to pair Sauterne,
Mm.
but I've only tasted ice wine a few times, and it was a long time ago. And it was only the good stuff. How do you pair
Mm.
it? When do you drink it? Like, when's the right time to to try some
Like,
Canadian ice wine?
I honestly like, there's usually the kind of rule of thumb is like,
And they come in half bottles usually, right?
yeah, they're little bottles, and it's something you can also keep it in your fridge open for a little bit too, right? It's not like you have to consume it within a week. I drink ice wine on holidays, and so I
Hmm.
actually don't really think like, oh, I'm gonna have an ice wine and I'm gonna pair it perfectly with, this like creme brulee with fresh fruit, for example, or something. Like I'm gonna actually, I'm pairing it with my lifestyle. Like I'm more of a I think Jancis Robinson kind of writes like that. She's like, if you're if you're two people and you go out for dinner and you're gonna have one bottle of wine on the menu, you're gonna get the bottle of wine that you want, and not even if you're getting like four courses, you're gonna get the bottle of wine you want. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Sure.
so I pair my ice wine with my event, which is like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's pretty much the only time
Oh.
I really drink it. So we
And are
don't have
you
any
drinking it
pride.
for like after dinner during
Yeah,
dessert, or are you
yeah,
drinking it before?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I
Because
mean,
I typically I drink a fair amount of Sauterne and a fair amount of Tokai, but I always drink them before dinner.
yeah, I'm asking wine guy for his
Bacchus.
best. Yeah, well, yeah. I asked actually Bacchus some fun questions about Canadian investment grade wine today. Are there any Canadian investment grade wines? He didn't tell me anything about this most expensive wine in 2007 or 2008. Um, but yeah, here we go. So like Sauternes is different. Like Sauternes, I would pair with probably like foie gras or cheese, but that's just classic.
Yeah,
That's what you
foie before dinner, always.
well before dinner. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Then I understand your before dinner thing, but ice wine before dinner? Never heard of that.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I've
No.
only ever had ice wine at a tasting. I
Okay.
haven't like had it at an event or with
Yeah.
family or like at home.
Yeah. So like here,
But I'm not Canadian, so you can't blame me.
I asked wine guy. I mean, okay, he's giving us a whole bunch of different categories.
I think we should
Cheese.
ask your mom.
Oh, mom,
Your
what would
mom
you pair
probably
ice wine
knows.
with? She'd be like, more ice wine.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But basically it's like anything kind of but chocolate,
Okay.
right? Like
All right,
cheese.
that's fair.
If you're gonna go cheese, you're gonna go blue cheese because then you've got that salty sweet thing. If you've got fruit, then maybe like also something. If you think about some of the aromas that you're gonna get, which are like orchard fruits, like stone fruits and things like that, then maybe go in that direction. So
Okay.
Bacchus is saying fruit-based desserts, cheese, foie gras or pate, custards and creamy desserts. Chocolate's not really where you want to go. Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the West, where I
Hmm.
assume it's like Syrah and maybe some some
Yeah,
Rhone
but also,
varietals, and maybe
yeah,
some
but it's a
Pinot.
lot of
They're not
a
making
lot of
any Pinot up there, are they?
Pinot, 100%. Pinot is one of the
Really?
star grapes of Canada. Like,
Okay,
oh yeah, stay tuned for
interesting.
Pinot from Canada. Also the
All right.
Chardonnay. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we moved over to ice wine in
Yeah.
Niagara, and kind of like right along the border there, in
But
in
Niagara is also
in,
famous for like
in
incredible.
Ontario.
Yeah, it's not just ice wine, Dave. Like
Okay, whatever.
everyone's making fantastic dry wines. Well, not everyone, but there's a lot of wineries that are now making very good Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Gewürztraminer and Sauvignon Blanc,
Okay.
Pinot Gris, Merlot,
And
Cab
then what
Franc.
about up there
My
in
favorite. No, we're
Cab
not done.
Franc
We're not
in
done because yeah,
Ontario?
listen to this. So I actually, this is a good point. So I did a blind tasting in the winery that I worked for in Germany I was at a table of sommeliers, and everybody brought a bottle and like covered it up and didn't tell anyone and what it was. And we went around the table and opened up all these big red wines. The theme was just like big and bold. I brought a Canadian Cabernet Franc 100% varietal wine from Niagara, and I can't remember which winery it was anymore. But I'll figure it out. Anyways, and everybody thought that it was a Napa Cab.
Hmm.
So
Wow,
anyway, yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
I know you're such a Cab Franc fan.
I am.
Next time
I
you're
am.
back home, see if you
Try
can
a
find.
Canadian Cab Franc.
Mhm.
I'll work on that.
Yeah.
And what about up there in New Scotland?
Up there. Like, so where I'm from is actually one of the most southern places in Canada. It's like Toronto and Halifax, basically. Well, Yarmouth, technically. But Nova Scotia is very south, coastal. We're a peninsula. And actually very, very similar terroir to Champagne. Very chalky soils, super chalky. And we have this really important influence there for winemaking, and that is the Bay of Fundy, which has the highest tides in and out in the world on a daily basis. Super fun to actually go, like when the
Hmm.
tide's coming out or when the tide is out, you go out and you get on, like you walk out into the middle of this dry riverbed, and then you get in a boat and you wait, and it like you can see it rushing in, like you can see it from the horizon, and it comes up like a foot a minute, and it just like rushes in, and then you basically like whitewater raft. It's so fun. You're covered in mud. It's awesome. It's really fun.
Cool.
So
All
it's a
right.
very cool influence in the wine areas. So Annapolis Valley, for example, is where a lot of the wines come from in Nova Scotia. And sparkling wine is, I would say, king, kind of a lot like champagne in style, but lower alcohol and it's got that like coastal saline influence in it. So you can really, very interesting sparkling wines, like very, very
Okay.
like straight, pure sparkling. And we make it from the same grapes. So it's
So
champagne in style.
let's talk about distribution. So you can't get it in Germany and you can't get it in France.
I
Where
think
can you actually find
yeah.
this Canadian wine, or is it so good that they don't let it leave the country?
Well, the last time I was in Canada, I wasn't even able to buy cross provincial border, which is really annoying. So, but actually, I don't think I could. I think they might have changed that during COVID. I'd have to check, because people wanted to booze during COVID. Obviously, they might
Yeah.
have changed that. But very difficult. It's not exported a lot. I know at Pro Wine, Pro Wine happens in Dusseldorf every year. That's where I'm based. Um, and they have like a huge Canadian section, and all the winemakers come over, and we always go out for pizza after. But there's a couple people that import it, like not very hard to find.
Yeah.
It is very hard to find. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer. So I always have to like load up my suitcase. My parents are coming. Hey mom, you're coming to visit in a couple weeks. Can you bring some wine, please? Thank you.
And one for me.
Yeah, 100%. Can you bring Dave a
All right.
wine, mom? Thanks.
Speaking of which, are you coming to or should we make an announcement about Barcelona on Monday?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I mean, look, what we should say to close this out, because we've now been
Yeah.
jabbering for 30 minutes. On Monday next week, I'm back in Barcelona,
Mhm.
and Lou Kerner, who's the founder of Crypto Mondays, and we've done a million events with him from around the world. He's going to come and hang out in Barcelona, and we're going to do a big Crypto Mondays event on the roof of Norskin. And if you've never been there, it's down on the beach near the W. So if you're anywhere near Barcelona on Monday, July 7th, then come to Crypto Mondays. It's going to be a riot, super fun, open bar, Open bar. That's all I had to say to get Jana to come.
In.
But it's going to be really, really a lot of fun. We're going to have a great time. Lou and I are going to talk about AI and crypto, and we've been trying to get Jana to come. If you come, Jana, we'll put you on stage.
Oh, what an honor.
No, but I mean, you can. We really want you to come and moderate, because otherwise, like, Lou and I are just up there talking over one another.
I'll do a little thing about Canadian wine if I need to. I'm going to steal the mic if you let me in. So no, of course. Yeah, I'll come. I'll see you in Barcelona on Monday, Dave, and everyone else
Awesome.
who wants to come. If I had announced open bar, it would have sounded more like open bar.
Open bar.
Be an accent. And on that note, great. Cool.
Okay.
This has been fun. Thanks, everybody. I hope you
Thank
learned
you.
something about Canadian wine. And
I learned something about Canadian wine.
I don't want to look in the comments and see any of that 51st state shit, guys. I will find you and you will hear my wrath.
Elbows up means when you're doing the shots of Canadian whiskey. That's when you put your elbows up.
Yes, and it's also right here. There we go. Shout out Glenn Breton.
That's the good stuff. Look at that.
Anyway, just a little bottle.
Thanks, Jana.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Maureen, our producer in the back. All right.
Bye-bye.